We live in a world of endless noise. Words, accusations, justifications, and arguments, an orchestra of voices clamoring to be heard, understood, and validated. But consider for a moment the profound weight of silence. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is a presence all its own, a mirror, reflecting back the energy of those who face it. Silence has an uncanny way of reflecting the inner workings of others. When you withhold your words, others are forced to confront their own. The absence of your voice strips away the distractions, leaving them to look into the mirror of their own actions, thoughts, and motives. Without the immediate reaction they expect, they are left with no choice but to turn inward and assess their own behavior, perhaps even questioning why you have chosen to remain silent. This mirror effect can be disarming. People often rely on dialogue to shape their perception of a situation. Words become the lens through which they interpret what's happening around them, and in turn, define their interactions. But when you withhold that lens, they can no longer view the situation as they once did. They are no longer the center of the narrative, the focus shifts entirely to them. In this way, silence becomes a powerful tool of self-reflection. It demands that others engage with their own insecurities, contradictions, and unresolved emotions. Without your participation in the verbal exchange, they are left alone to confront their own internal dialogue, which may be unsettling, uncomfortable, or even confusing. What happens then is that silence exposes the truth about the other person, their motives, and the way they perceive the world. It creates a space where they cannot hide behind their words, where the truth of their behavior and intentions becomes more apparent. The act of remaining silent, in essence, forces them to see themselves as they are, unfiltered and unspoken. Conflict thrives on engagement. It feeds off the back-and-forth exchanges, the words that escalate emotions, the reactions that build upon one another. There is an inherent rhythm to this cycle, a momentum that grows with each response, each argument, each retort. It's a dance of reactions, a perpetual motion that rarely ends without one side feeling defeated or exhausted. But silence, when chosen consciously, disrupts this cycle entirely. When you refuse to engage, when you step back and withhold your words, you break the flow of energy that keeps the cycle alive. Silence introduces a pause, an interruption. It acts like a stone thrown into the current of an ongoing stream, causing ripples that distort the steady path of conflict. What happens then is profound. Without your participation, the cycle has nowhere to go. The arguments lose their fuel, the tension begins to dissipate, and the momentum falters. The person who sought to provoke, to drag you into the exchange, is left hanging. They may not know how to proceed, for they were depending on your reaction to move the conflict forward. Silence forces them to either accept the stillness or to confront their own role in the escalation. It is a moment of stillness that they cannot control, and in that stillness they are left with nothing but their own unresolved energy. By stepping out of the cycle, you give yourself the power to reset the dynamic. No longer bound by the expected script of engagement, you free yourself from the need to justify, defend, or escalate. Your silence creates space for a different outcome, one where the need for constant interaction is no longer necessary. It's a return to a neutral state, a moment of clarity where the cycle of conflict comes to a halt, and the possibility for understanding or resolution can emerge. In this way, silence becomes not just an absence, but a powerful tool for ending cycles that would otherwise perpetuate. It provides the opportunity to step outside the ongoing struggle and find peace in its cessation. You said silence, though seemingly void of meaning, speaks in ways that words cannot. It holds a subtle, unspoken language that transcends the limitations of verbal communication. In the absence of words, emotions, intentions, and deeper truths are conveyed through the very act of not speaking. This language does not rely on syntax or grammar. It is understood on a deeper, more intuitive level, speaking directly to the heart and mind. The unspoken language is one of presence. It speaks volumes without uttering a single sound. A moment of silence can communicate what 1,000 words cannot. It can express discomfort, understanding, or even disapproval without the need for confrontation or argument. In this way, silence becomes a powerful form of expression. It holds a space for what cannot be said aloud, truths too painful or too complex to be distilled into language. In relationships, silence can be used to communicate a depth of understanding or connection that words may fail to express. Sometimes, simply sitting in silence together conveys a sense of comfort and solidarity that words cannot provide. It is a language that relies on shared experience, a recognition that not everything needs to be vocalized in order to be understood. The act of simply being present, without the need for explanation or justification, can speak volumes. Moreover, silence can convey power and control. When someone is accustomed to filling the air with their words, withholding your speech can be a statement in itself. It can assert your independence and the boundaries of your emotional landscape. By not participating in their verbal exchange, you let your silence take the place of your voice. It is a quiet yet profound way of communicating that you are not engaged in their drama, their conflict, or their need for validation. This unspoken language also exists in the space between words. A pause in a conversation can carry meaning, a moment of reflection, a hesitation before responding, or a deliberate break in the dialogue. These gaps between spoken words are not empty, they are filled with meaning, with the weight of what is unsaid. In many cases, these pauses reveal more than the words themselves, as they allow the underlying emotions, intentions, and thoughts to surface unfiltered and raw. The unspoken language of silence is a language of depth and authenticity. It requires no translation, no explanation. It is understood by those who are willing to listen not with their ears, but with their heart, their intuition, and their awareness of what lies beyond the surface. Presence is one of the most potent forces in any situation, and it is often best expressed through silence. To be truly present means to exist fully in the moment, to engage with the world around you without distraction, without the need to assert your thoughts or force your opinions onto others. Silence, in this sense, is a powerful manifestation of presence. It allows you to remain anchored in the here and now, undistracted by the noise of the external world or the pressure to react. When you remain silent, your presence alone can command attention. People often underestimate the power of being fully present in a space. It's not about occupying a room physically, it's about occupying it with your consciousness, your awareness, and your energy. This type of presence has a subtle, yet undeniable impact on those around you. The mere act of being fully engaged, without the need to fill the space with words, creates a calm and grounding influence. In tense situations, your silence and presence can become a stabilizing force. It can act as a kind of emotional anchor, drawing others back to the present moment, helping them pause and reflect. Your ability to stand still and observe without reacting allows the chaos around you to dissipate, if only for a brief moment. This type of presence is not passive, it is a quiet strength. In not reacting, you are not relinquishing control, you are asserting a greater form of mastery. You are saying, I do not need to add to the noise, I am enough as I am. Moreover, the power of presence lies in the ability to make others feel seen, heard, and understood without saying a word. There's a profound connection that occurs when you are fully present with someone. It's as though your silence holds space for them to express themselves, for them to be fully acknowledged without the need for explanation or justification. In these moments, communication transcends language. It becomes a shared experience, A mutual recognition that the essence of what is being conveyed goes far beyond what is being said. Presence in silence also radiates a quiet confidence. It shows that you are not desperate for attention or validation. You are comfortable with who you are, content in the stillness of your own being. This authenticity, untainted by the need for constant affirmation, is magnetic. Others can feel this groundedness and are naturally drawn to it, finding peace in your ability to simply be. The more you cultivate the power of presence, the more you realize that you do not need to be constantly verbalizing, justifying, or proving yourself. Your mere existence, your ability to be present in the moment without the need for external validation, speaks louder than any words ever could. Silence, in this sense, becomes a direct expression of confidence, mastery, and inner peace. It's the ability to show up fully, not as a performer seeking validation, but as a being fully attuned to the moment, to the people around you, and to the energy in the room. Words, when spoken, carry more than just their immediate meaning. They are vessels of energy, emotions, and intentions. Each word has weight. It carries the power to uplift or to wound, to heal or to harm. This weight is often underestimated, as we frequently use words carelessly without truly considering their impact. But in silence, we are reminded of the profound responsibility that words hold when they are finally spoken. When you choose silence, you are also choosing the awareness of this weight. You recognize that not every situation demands a response, that words are not always the most effective means of communication. Silence in this context becomes a way to honor the gravity of speech. When you do speak, your words are more deliberate, more thoughtful, because you've taken the time to consider the consequences of your speech. Words are also a reflection of the inner world. What we speak often reveals more about ourselves than we realize: our fears, desires, insecurities, and values. The weight of words is not just external, it is internal as well. When we speak, we give life to the thoughts and emotions that reside within us. And because words are so powerful, they can leave lasting impressions on others. A harsh word, a moment of cruelty, can linger far longer than we might intend. Conversely, words of kindness, encouragement, or wisdom can shape someone's perception of themselves or their world in ways we may never fully understand. In moments of conflict or tension, the weight of words becomes especially apparent. A single word can escalate a situation or bring it to a resolution. Silence in these moments underscores the importance of choosing carefully. It's easy to react impulsively, to let words fly out in a moment of frustration or anger. But silence in those moments creates space for reflection, allowing you to consider the impact your words will have. The weight of words is also seen in their permanence. Once spoken, they cannot be erased. The consequences of a careless word, whether positive or negative, reverberate through time. The emotional residue of our words may remain in someone's heart long after the conversation has ended. It's a reminder that speech, once it leaves the mouth, cannot be taken back. There is no rewind button, no undo function. This understanding of the weight of words is one reason why silence can be such a powerful tool. It helps us avoid the regret that comes from saying things we don't mean, or from speaking in haste. When we are silent, we create space for words to have their true meaning. Silence does not cheapen the value of words, it amplifies it. We begin to understand that our words are not simply a means of filling the air, they are tools of creation, capable of shaping our world and the worlds of others. And so when we choose to speak, we do so with intention. We understand that every word is a pebble dropped into the vast ocean of time and memory, creating ripples that can spread far beyond what we can see. In this light, silence becomes the perfect counterbalance to speech. It allows us to hold the weight of words in reverence, to recognize the responsibility that comes with the act of communication. and to ensure that when we do speak, we do so with the care, wisdom, and thoughtfulness that words demand. Stillness is a profound tool for healing, though it is often misunderstood in a world that values constant motion, busyness, and productivity. In the rush of daily life, we are taught to keep moving, to keep talking, to keep reacting. But there is a deep, restorative power in choosing stillness, an opportunity to reconnect with the body, mind, and soul in ways that words and actions cannot achieve. Healing through stillness begins with the acknowledgement that sometimes doing nothing is the most important thing we can do. In moments of emotional pain, confusion, or trauma, we often feel compelled to fix, to analyze, to act. But healing is not always about doing, it is often about being. Stillness offers us the space to pause, to breathe, and to simply exist without the need to change, correct, or solve. In this quietude, we create an environment where the body and mind can begin to recalibrate, to find their natural equilibrium without the interference of constant external input. Stillness allows us to listen to the body's messages that we might miss if we are always in motion. In a world full of distractions, we tend to disconnect from the wisdom of our bodies, ignoring the signals of fatigue, stress, or emotional overload. When we stop, when we sit in stillness, we open ourselves to the subtle signals that guide us toward healing. We become more attuned to our breath, to the subtle shifts in our energy, and to the emotions that may have been buried under layers of activity. Moreover, stillness offers an opportunity for mental clarity. Our minds are often cluttered with thoughts, judgments, and worries. In the quiet, however, we can find relief from this mental noise. Stillness provides the space to let our thoughts settle, much like sediment in a still pond. When we stop mentally grasping for answers or analyzing every detail, we give ourselves the chance to experience a moment of peace. In this stillness, insights can emerge. We may find the solutions to our problems not by forcing answers, but by allowing our minds the rest they need to process and integrate experiences. Emotionally, stillness creates room for release. It's in the still moments that we can finally feel the emotions we have been avoiding. The silence allows us to sit with our pain, our grief, or our fear without judgment. This process of being with our emotions rather than running from them or suppressing them is a key component of healing. By allowing ourselves to feel deeply in a quiet space, we give ourselves permission to heal from within. Over time, the rawness of these emotions softens, and the pain that once felt overwhelming begins to lose its grip. In relationships, stillness can be a healing force as well. Sometimes words are not necessary for understanding or resolution. Silence between people can allow the space for nonverbal communication, where the mere presence of another person is enough to offer comfort and understanding. It allows for empathy and connection that transcends verbal exchange. In this way, stillness can help heal rifts and bring people closer together by fostering a sense of presence and shared space. Healing through stillness is also an invitation to let go of control. We often believe that in order to heal, we must actively do something, fix something, or change something. But stillness teaches us the wisdom of surrender. It reminds us that healing is not always something we can force or rush. It is a natural process that unfolds in its own time. By accepting stillness, we embrace the notion that some things are beyond our control, and that healing often comes when we allow it to happen, rather than trying to force it. Through stillness, we return to ourselves. We shed the distractions, the noise, and the pressures of the world, and we rediscover our own rhythms, our own truths, and our own capacity for growth. It is in the quiet that we find space for transformation, where our wounds are given the opportunity to heal, and where we can reconnect with the inherent peace that resides within us all. Freedom from control is an empowering state of being that arises when we recognize and detach ourselves from external forces or expectations that seek to dictate our thoughts, emotions, or actions. In a world where we are constantly influenced by societal norms, cultural pressures, and the opinions of others, the concept of freedom from control is a powerful and often revolutionary act. It is the realization that true liberation comes not from the absence of influence, but from the ability to choose how we respond to it or whether we engage with it at all. The first step in gaining freedom from control is acknowledging the areas of life where we are subject to influence. Often we live under the assumption that we must meet external expectations, whether they are imposed by family, friends, colleagues, or society as a whole. These influences shape our decisions, dictate our behavior, and define how we see ourselves. We might feel pressure to conform to certain ideals of success, beauty, or morality, or we may alter our actions based on the desire to gain approval or avoid conflict. But freedom from control begins when we recognize these external forces and realize that they do not have to determine our worth or define our choices. Silence plays a key role in this freedom. By choosing not to react, to withhold our words and actions in moments of pressure, we free ourselves from the need to constantly meet others' expectations. Silence becomes a form of resistance, a refusal to participate in the drama, the manipulation, or the control tactics that others may try to impose upon us. In remaining silent, we assert our autonomy and send a clear message that we will not be shaped by the demands of the external world. We reclaim our power to respond according to our own values, beliefs, and needs, rather than being swept away by the current of others' expectations. Freedom from control also comes when we stop seeking validation from others. In a society where social approval is often the currency by which we measure our worth, detaching from the need for external validation can be profoundly liberating. We live in a constant state of comparison, measuring our success, our appearance, and our worth against the standards set by others. When we break free from this cycle, we find a sense of peace and self-acceptance that is not contingent on anyone else's approval. Silence, in this sense, becomes a tool for self-validation. By learning to be comfortable in our own skin, to listen to our inner voice rather than the voices of the world, we unlock the freedom to exist fully as we are. Another aspect of freedom from control is the ability to set boundaries. When we remain silent in the face of attempts to control or manipulate us, we are also asserting our personal boundaries. Silence becomes a tool of protection, a way to withdraw from situations or people that seek to drain our energy, invade our privacy, or push us into uncomfortable roles. By choosing when to speak and when to remain silent, we gain control over our own emotional landscape. We stop allowing others to dictate how we feel, how we think, or how we behave. We learn to say no, not only through words but through our silence, signaling that certain boundaries are non-negotiable. Moreover, freedom from control allows us to live in alignment with our authentic selves. It means we stop bending to the will of others or pretending to be something we are not in order to fit into predefined molds. Instead, we embrace our individuality, our quirks, and our personal truths. Silence becomes a means of reclaiming our space in the world, asserting that we are enough, just as we are. In this space of self-acceptance, we free ourselves from the illusion of perfection or the need to be constantly performing for others. Ultimately, freedom from control is a reclamation of power, not as an aggressive force, but as an act of sovereignty over our own lives. It is the freedom to live according to our own values, to speak when we choose, to act with intention, and to reject the external forces that try to shape us into something we are not. Silence, in this context, becomes a radical act of independence, a declaration that we are not bound by anyone else's expectations, judgments, or demands. Through silence, we step into the full power of our being, unshackled by the constraints of external control and free to live as our most authentic selves. In the end, silence is not merely the absence of sound, but the presence of power. It is through stillness, through choosing to remain silent when the world demands noise, that we find our true voice. Silence gives us the space to reflect, to heal, and to break free from the cycles of control that seek to define us. It is in silence that we reclaim our autonomy, allowing us to act with intention, to speak with purpose, and to live in alignment with our deepest truths. Let us remember that by embracing the power of silence, we free ourselves from the expectations and influences of the world. We step into a space of self-empowerment and self-awareness, where we can create our own path, undistracted and unburdened. So choose silence when it calls to you, not as an escape, but as a statement of strength and sovereignty. In silence, we find the freedom to be ourselves unapologetically, authentically, and wholly.